record to the cloud. And in three, two. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to one of the few podcasts where it's not just two white guys telling you stuff. It's an Indian guy and a black guy and a
And
white
this
guest.
guy.
And that guy.
And you
Ladies,
can't figure out which one.
so tonight we have Mr. Chris Norton Walker. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together.
Wave like you're on a game show. Yeah, brilliant.
I've just had to retype my name on the screen as well, just so because I don't think people can ever spell it on the internet when they try to look out for me, despite how many times they pretend. So I am Nelson Gumbakomba. That is Christopher Walker, Meat Wolf. Now that you know who we are, let us tell you what we are going to do today.
Let's podcast.
Yay! So really, what I always tell our fans is that I'm such a big fan of comedy in the sense that I get excited just to talk about it. And part of the thing that we're trying to create with Mint is just a good discussion about how people get to where they are as comedians. Because I feel like nowadays, if someone decided, I want to be a comedian, where do they start? It's such a gray area, so we're here to
I think for me, if people want to start now, they wouldn't start live on stage. They start doing sketches, they start doing kind of Zoom things and stuff like that. So I think now, absolutely this minute in time, they would have a different career path to 2 years ago, to 5 years ago, to 10 years ago.
Definitely. And even 2 years ago and 5 years ago, I feel like the time at which you started stand-up comedy really affects your journey, like in terms of the social media stuff that was out there, the type of promotion that was out there. There's certain comedians that I was watching on TV growing up, but because they didn't focus on the social media stuff, because the system that existed at that time already catered for a career where you didn't have to self-promote, that sustained them. But now that everything is kind of shifting towards an online based presence, you now see them creating online profiles but having small followings, which is not a big deal or anything, but it's just like there's so many aspects to the comedy game that
But certainly now we're not just stand-ups. We're podcasters. We're bloggers. We're vloggers. There's so much out there that we have to do. We have to tweet every day. We have to put something on kind of Facebook every day. We have to do like Instagram lives and things like that. So there's so much admin, like more admin that's involved. We're just trying to get people in to kind of come and see you.
Well, one thing that I've also realized is that an email is never just an email. It's like a business proposal. You're pitching future gigs, future potential. You want to get paid. So either way, you're becoming a salesman. There's so many.
Certainly in the email that I have links to an MC video. I have links to a set video. I then have links to like kind of small TV performances I've been in and kind of things like that. So it is just a whole kind of multimedia block that you're sending over.
And let me just say, today's guest is, someone that I performed with from the very start, from the very second gig. And I have to say, Chris Norton Walker is a great example of someone who has stage presence and a voice and something that it was very easy from early days to see that, okay, if we set up a show, Chris is going to headline. He's got that persona where he's like coming in, closing the show, and that's part of that's what's going to start our first question, the whole stage presence thing, because I was telling Meet earlier on that in the early days, and I think you still do it now, there were times when you would shout all the way up to the stage, just walking up, and it hyped up the audience. It hypes up the audience so much that by the time you get on stage, everyone's already on the is already on the same page. So just a question to you, how you go to that point, how you decided that was going to be a start.
So I have done a lot of very bad gigs in my time. I've done a lot of badly emceed gigs, badly organized gigs, badly kind of framework gigs in terms of just the architecture and design of the room. And if it's too light in there, you can't focus. If they're too distracted by things, you can't focus. And I'm quite a big kind of presence anyway, so if I can get, as you say, a bit of hype going, a bit of energy going, they can see who I am, they can see what I'm doing before I've even stepped on the stage. And sometimes you don't step on the stage because they are so engrossed in what you're doing, you have a little play with the front row before you even get on there. Then hopefully, like you won't do in every room, but hopefully they will be on board with your character, your style, your kind of voice before you've said anything.
Yeah.
It's often the case that people in kind of these sort of comedy books go, the first moment they see you, the first words out of your mouth are the most important. But if you can do that sort of before you've got on, they'll have an idea of who you are, they'll have an idea of style. And because I wear like a specific thing, like a suit, and quite a big loud man, and they go, that's what he's going to be like for the rest of it. He's going to banter with us, he's going to interact with us, he's going to do some jokes as well.
And one thing I like about that system is that that loud, just that big opening, if you're a fan of shows or theater, that's just like, everyone is like, oh, okay, now we got a show. It's very showmanship.
Yeah.
I attended a comedy course a few years ago where the guy just kept saying, once you take away all the science and stuff from comedy, it's really just you being mischievous, like that inner kid just being excited, so that's something that I picked up from you, and I think you have that really strong energy, and
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
interesting.
certainly I went to drama school, so I have that performance background. I have that kind of acting background. So and my master's degree was in in like device and collaborative theatre, but it was also in kind of non-traditional spaces. So you as an actor have to learn how to act in a pub, or have to learn how to act in a weird space that shouldn't be right for comedy. So you don't even have those sorts of feelings of failure or like embarrassment, because you
Yeah.
can just shout in a room because you've been doing it for your masters, and kind of that follows you onto the stage. That if you can already be performing, already capture their attention before you even get to the stage, then you've kind of won them over already.
Yes.
So, yeah, I got a question real quick.
Sure.
So, you alluded to like they already know your character, your style, and then you said capturing their attention. So, how do you understand I'm assuming that you have to understand what your own character and your own style is before you exude that.
Yeah.
So, what is the process of you finding that character slash style? What happened?
So I think it's very much twofold. I think there's one train of thought that is find your clown, find things that work, because different things will work in different rooms. Some rooms you can't be loud in. Sometimes they already know where the stage is, and it's all very kind of focused. But if you are in a weird room where there's kind of football, soccer playing next door, or kind of like distractions, you need to get them on side. Look at me, look over here. We're focusing on the show. And if there is a bit of theatricality all about it, then you can interact with the front row. You can do those sorts of things. How did I find it? I think for me it was a little trial and error. In some rooms in the beginning, I was too loud for those rooms. In some rooms, it didn't have to happen. It is just a trial and error of kind of stepping through and going, what do you want to give, and what will the audience take from you? And I think every comedian has to go through this in terms of what do you look like, what expectations do they have, and what sort of persona you want to give them versus what they'll buy from you.
So yeah, that's a really interesting concept. So is it a premeditated thing? Do you go like, okay, today I'm going to try to be like really loud and see what the audience likes, or like or do you just like go in the moment? You're like, all right, we'll see what happens, you know?
I think like any good clown, essentially, you have to feel what is happening at that split second.
Okay.
If you can play, if other people have played with the audience, if there's been the sort of theatricality where and the sort of tension where an actor's looked at a heckler and they've got a laugh from that, those kind of sorts of things, and you kind of look and you'll spy them and you work out which ones within your weaponry, within your arsenal, within your kind of set of skills that you can deploy when. So there will be sometimes when I won't be big and loud. I'll just come on and kind of creep my way on and just be like, you, kind of use that sort of tension of the room and just be very quiet with it all and be very kind of tension filled with it. Which if then you get somebody who laughs at your breathing or laughs at your eye movements, you can just focus in on that person and be the best fan. Just be like, I hate you. You're ruining this for me. And just kind of have that sort of play. But it's good to have kind of different levels of play as well. You can also come on and be like, hey, how's it going? Cool. Let's kind of do it like a normal kind of fun level. But if you've got those different levels that you can play with, from my point of view, you can play in different ways.
One thing that I've noticed as well with comedians that have that sort of technique is that they don't always decide what their first joke is going to be until minutes before the show. When they understand the energy in the room, when they're like, okay, fine, all right, okay. So now this side of the room, there's this lady who laughs at this stupid stuff. That guy over there hates this. They picked up things in the room. So now a few minutes before they go on stage, they just decide, okay, this is going to be my opener. And the first few more minutes are just them playing around, putting everything together, and then dive into material. And I like when that happens because I've seen it in, when you go to like one of them comedy clubs and you see someone who's really good, a headliner, but they're not scripted. It's just like in the moment. It's just, I feel like that's when I enjoy comedy the most, when it's not really scripted, when someone is taking the energy in the room and also mixing it with the material so that it becomes a very unique experience. I like.
Well, I certainly know I've got a very good opener. So a lot of my sets, because I do one-liners, is very structured anyway, but there's play within them. And I've got certain one-liners where I'll sort of allow an audience member to answer a question for me, or they'll shout something out at me, which then allows me the time to play with them and their answers and what they come back with, and then I know I've got jokes that are ready and waiting.
Sometimes when I do London gigs, right, if for any reason whatsoever the guy before me was on TV or had any TV appearance whatsoever, I always had a joke. I'd go like, okay, so just like the previous guy, I too am on TV. I'm on a show called Crime Watch. Now, Nate, Crime Watch is a crime show where they chase black people.
Yeah, it's like
so,
I'm glad you have to explain what the words crime and watch are, to be honest.
That's funny. That's really funny. Yeah.
There's points in the old podcast when they have to explain their American stuff to me. So yeah. So this little moments like that where I always feel like, man, if someone is in the audience and they're just witnessing that, they're like, okay, wow, we got to show that. It's
like cops, but very British.
Right.
There's no shooting. They run on foot and like.
So I love this concept of play. Is there a difference between play and crowd work to you?
Yes.
Okay. What is that?
Because I MC a lot, I would define crowd work as a question that's asked and an answer that comes back, and then a funny thing that you say. Yeah. So it's a very sort of structured question and answer debate.
Right.
But with the sort of play that you do, you can get people doing all sorts of different things that you have never planned for. I think with a lot of those kind of crowd work questions, go, what do you do for a job? I'm a banker. Here's like a financial joke in some way. Whereas if somebody is, let's say, kind of laughing like a guinea pig in a weird way, and you go over to them and you can just tell them to stop, or if they, for whatever reason, are just holding a banana in the audience. I've had that before, and then like, eat that banana right now, it's distracting me. And just kind of have those kind of clowny aspects of seeing what you can kind of get away with, or kind of stealing the banana off them and me eating myself and just being like, you should have eaten this, I don't want you to. Just finding ways to push and to pull and experiment and kind of improvise your way through, because a lot of people will come off stage and other comedians will go, you were hitting every single thing you did there, Chris, but from my point of view, I was trying out 4 of them, one worked, so you push that one and they just ignore the other 3.
Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, can you name those, like you said 1, 2, 3, work or didn't work?
Okay, so say you talk to a lady down the front, she doesn't really give you anything. You move on from her. You find an attractive lady down the front. You kind of flirt with her a bit. Doesn't really go anywhere. You find somebody who's wearing a weird hat, and you're like, I want to wear that hat. You pass that hat over. They pass the hat over. You wear the hat for 10 minutes while you're doing some jokes, and you just go, ignore the hat. We're doing jokes. Ignore the hat. No, don't. Just ignore the hat. Just ignore the hat. The hat is not here. Just ignore the hat. Then you hand the hat back at the end, and then maybe you talk to somebody else on this side, and they're not really giving you anything. So those 3 that you try to interact with, nothing's really happened with them, but they only remember the hat thing that you did. It's like, you killed it with a hat thing. Yeah, but that hat thing can only ever happen once.
It's an energy thing, because it creates those moments where, like, once you witness it in the moment, it creates those belly laughs, the stuff that we always talk about, because it's so unscripted, so on the, it's
so there was an act
unpredictable.
that I gigged with in the before times, who came on, did a really slow set, but turned himself to one side. So he was just sort of talking to one side. I can't remember why he was doing it, but there was just a reason that he was talking just one side of the audience. He turned himself away. So when I came on a bit slow as well, looked at them all, they were laughing at me doing it. So all I had to do was just move to the side, because this guy had done it 2 acts beforehand, and they were like, he is a genius. What did he do?
He's a genius.
There was one where I remember somebody in the front row muttered something, and I didn't really hear what it was. I kind of asked, "Oh, what's the matter, mate?" And he went, "Toulouse." And I thought, "Oh, you're French. Whereabouts in France are you from?" And he went, "No, too loud." So at which point I kind of got all kind of defensive, and then hid behind like one of the gig banners, and just did all my jokes with nobody seeing me from behind this gig banner. And then that's only a video I can send over to you. But it's just one of those things where you've got to react and take what has happened to you to the nth degree. And even when you're playing with it and you're behind this banner, and you're doing jokes from behind this banner, there'll still be times when you just kind of peek out and go, everybody's still here, good, excellent. And just kind of find ways to just play within that small confine of what you're doing. As I say, it won't happen every time, but you've just got to allow it to happen. There'll be some acts who will stop it all and be like, this is the set that I have, this is the show that I have, please do not distract me, because I am on autopilot, I am thinking about other things. But I just really enjoy those, just creating those very unique moments.
When a comedian says stuff like, let's say they're halfway through their set and they go, "Oh, now I can finally start my actual jokes." I like it when they do that, when it's genuine, by the way. When they've just spent half their set playing around, and it's just like, and the whole crowd is laughing, and it's been unscripted, and that's my favorite type of comedy to watch. That type of style.
And then
But
so
also
that
you can
just
put
goes.
those things in
Yeah.
all the way through. So Katie Pritchard does it. She goes, before I begin, after every joke. So just to
That's
have
good.
that sort of momentum, to have that play, and you've got to sort of invite the play, but not let the play overtake sometimes,
Yeah.
because you can have acts after you going, oh, thanks very much, you played with them, they're too boisterous now, and you kind of think, what is comedy then? Is it more of like a theatrical art where you're sat there and you're kind of passively enjoying it with a bit of a fourth wall, or should you have this sort of interaction, get people going? And what happens when it goes too far and there's too much play and you can't get back out of what you got yourself into?
That is a very good one of them questions that our audience would have to help us answer.
Yeah.
Now, but do you have any sort of influences for that style? The style that you have, what we've just been talking about so far. Who are your biggest influences?
So growing up, I watched a lot of Eddie Izzard, who has that kind of fake play, that sort of fake a fake improvisation. Things are the same, but they're also different. No show is the same, but some of the words maybe. You know,
Mm.
and I always kind of like that sort of play. I sort of think of myself as a cross between like Jimmy Carr and Ross Noble. So improvising loads, but also having that structure behind you that if for whatever reason the improvisation kind of peaks itself out and they're looking at you going, what now? You go, actually, I've got loads of jokes. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Yeah, and I just enjoy that sort of play, that sort of fun really on stage.
Um, as you have a background in theater, there was I actually did theater in high school, so I don't, I wasn't that good, but there were things that I did pick up on. People like play, like breaking the fourth wall, and I don't know whether it's because in Britain theater is a traditional thing, and whether other cultures have adopted that style as much. But I see it more in British culture where an act sort of or the audience really appreciates things like breaking the fourth wall, doing that sort of play, being theatrical, because there's also things like pantomime here, using your whole arsenal of theatrical skills to just entertain the audience. Like over here they'll love it, and I like stuff like that because it's like it's now applying things that have been developed over the years by all these Shakespeare and Shakespeare and all that, then modernizing it by applying stuff that you do as a stand-up comedian. So it's quite an advanced art form, if I must say.
Well, let's twist this around. In America, they don't really do this sort of thing. There's not really like there's improv and there's comedy, but there's not really maybe those sorts of interactions and heckles that we would have here.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it really depends on the comedian, right? Like someone like a Jimmy Carr invites that, right? So I think there are some comedians that will invite that kind of thing. And then there's people that you just want to listen to because they're smart, like Chris Rock or Dave Chappelle. You would never just like say something at one of them shows, right? And if you do, you're going to get destroyed, right? Like, and
But
Dave Chappelle's,
there was a Dave Chappelle one recently,
yeah,
wasn't there?
yeah, Sticks and Stones, right? But he just got murdered on that. That was the funniest thing ever. Like the cell phone rang. He didn't even talk, right? But right off the top, Chappelle was just like, "Wouldn't it be funny if he went outside and it was like, hello, Mama's dead. No. So yeah, I mean, I think comedy is comedy everywhere. The rules apply.
Now, I want to, this is one thing that we've started to look into near meet. It's about the voice because I feel like as you develop in your stand-up comedy career, at some point you have to, like you were saying earlier, you have to address who you are and how the audience sees you. And sometimes they don't always match, but in between trying to reconcile those two things, you can find your voice, you know. Do you have any sort of, I guess, commentary you can add in
Um,
regards to
I think finding
finding?
your voice is kind of maybe like a two-sided coin. I think there's a voice that you want to put out there, there's a voice that you enjoy doing, there's a voice that is very much you, and there's a fake voice that you can put on, like a character voice, because some people aren't themselves at all on stage. So is it easier to develop a character voice or to work out who you are as a person and portray whatever element that you want to portray on stage?
That is good. That is good because what you just said kind of makes me think like there's this idea that if you've done comedy for a certain amount of years, anything you say can be made funny.
Mhm.
You know, you can go on talk about politics, love, whatever. So it now becomes a question of what you want to be funny, where you now start taking control of
Okay.
the material and shaping how people see. And that's where you're digging deeper, where there's no what's the word? There's no shortcuts or cliches or anything in your material. It's just purely 100% you. There's a few comedians I've seen that have reached that level. Or you know, like someone like Patrice O'Neill, where you watch the whole set and there's no cliches, there's no shortcuts in writing jokes. Everything is just it's like a friend calling you, telling you a story. There's no sort of secret method is used to write the jokes. It's just pure commentary, but it's funny as hell.
But
And
I
that's
think if
like,
you know exactly what that sort of the framework or the kind of uh, the lens that you're talking through is, then as you say, you can make anything funny. If you know where the parameters of your voice are, if you know which words you're probably going to use, if you know which subjects you're probably going to talk about, and what attitudes you have to those things and to those people and to yourself, and to the audience, then you can easily put like a maths equation in a way, or like a logarithm. You can put a certain question, a certain value in, and go, we have to do this thing with it, this thing with it, this thing with it, and then you'll have at the end your kind of voice and your tone and your material from those kind of lenses that you're putting it through.
That's really interesting. So the funny thing is, when you first start out, you don't really know how to write jokes. And what I've noticed here in the States is a lot of people start with self deprecating jokes
Mhm.
and sex jokes.
Yep.
Right? Do you have any insight as to why
Perfect.
that happens?
Why that happens, I think those are sort of the things. Certainly, self-deprecation you're taught to do straight off the bat in a lot of these kind of instructional books. Kind of say something about yourself just to get everybody uh, calm and allow people to laugh at. If you're laughing at you, they can laugh at you as well.
Right.
So if you have a speech impediment, if you look weird, if you're wearing a hat or eating a banana, if you have some sort of disability, maybe, or if you're the only one of the only four black people in Norwich, then you have to sort of explain
Yeah.
that it's okay to laugh at these things, and I am aware of these things, and I think you need to get it right though, because some people can be self-deprecating off the top, but then be really positive about everything else, and there's kind of like a clash that goes on there.
Yeah.
And that just shows that you haven't got kind of your lenses kind of right. You've just read something in the book that you should be doing it this way. But it is often the case that, if you watch pro acts or people who do it really by the book, they'll go on, they'll talk about, in whatever order, themselves, maybe the past act, as Nelson was talking about, or the venue itself, just as a way to kind of ingratiate themselves with their audience and to get everybody on side. These are the sort of things I'm going to talk about in this sort of sarcastic way, or in this sort of sardonic way, or in this kind of silly way, so that people get an idea of you, they get an idea of what's going on, and a lot of things I think are about tension as well, especially off the top. If you have a weird growth on the side of your face, fine, but if you don't talk about it, I think from an audience point of view, you'll go, he's got a weird thing on the side of his face. Yeah. Has he noticed? So if you just get that out of the way, and I've got a weird thing on my side of the face, but I've got these puppets. So, you know, if you can kind of do those sorts of things, then all that tension is gone.
That's fair. And then, so once you get past that, is there a level between finding your framework and your lens and this bottom part of like self-deprecation and sex jokes? Like, what's that middle where comedians get to before they understand what their brand is, and, you know,
so I think
jokes through?
Yeah, there's like an adult learning cycle, isn't there?
Yeah.
Where you look it up now, Nelson. Where you have like, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're saying, you know what you're saying, but you don't know what you're doing. You know partially what you're doing, but you don't know what you're saying. Is that right? And then you kind of know what you're doing, you know what you're saying.
I know what you're doing. Yep.
So it's just a case of working your way through that kind of learning cycle.
Yeah.
And going, do I know what I'm doing? Yes. Do I know what I'm saying? Sort of. Do I know what I'm saying? Yes. But is it working in the context of me? Is it working in the context of the character? Is it working in the context of me and the audience together?
Got it. That makes sense. Super cool.
There's one thing that I also wanted to ask you, and this is not entirely straightforward, because it's more just because me and you know each other. But Chris has a very interesting memorization technique.
Dude, yeah.
You know, and here's the thing, and the reason why I'm mentioning that is because, you know, for all our, you know, the people that eventually watch this and they try to do memorization stuff, trying to memorize that 10-minute set. There's so many ways of doing it. I used to write it, just the first line on a piece of paper, and just add the first line and then memorize it that way. Chris, what's your style?
So I think lots of people have very different memory techniques. You will be writing stuff down. That's great. For me, I work very visually. So I have, if I have 200 jokes in like an hour-long set, say, then I will take small kind of visual elements from those jokes and make a small picture out of them. And then I will remember that picture and kind of put them together. So I have maybe one picture will be 5 jokes because it contains, let's say, like an outline of an elephant, or it contains an outline of like some eggs. And I've got like elephant and eggs in the same kind of picture, like that. So it's all about the kind of memory palace technique. Do you know how that works?
No, I mean, I've
cool.
heard of the visual stuff, but go ahead.
All right, that's fine. So let's take you through some memory palace technique work, and we will try it out at the end and see if it works. So I want you to close your eyes. Thank you. And imagine your bedroom. And so I'm going to want you to go and buy some breakfast items from the supermarket. So the best way to remember these breakfast items that I'm going to give you is to remember them just as disgustingly as possible. So if you've got your bedroom in mind, I want you to open a can of like tomatoes, maybe. You're going to have tomatoes, like a full English breakfast we're going to have. And I want you to pour all this can of tomatoes inside your pillow. Just a horrible squelchy feeling, right? And then I want you to crack 3 eggs on the bed itself and kind of mix them in horribly. I want you to, so if we're having an English breakfast, let's have some bacon. So I want you to get like a pile of clothes that everybody has in the bedroom, and layer some clothing and some bacon together, and clothing and bacon and clothing and bacon. So it's make the whole kind of clothing bacon mountain. Then I want you to go to your shoes, and I want you to put some sausages, some smelly, horrible sausages inside your smelly, horrible shoes. So hopefully, when we come back to this at the end, you'll be able to remember this disgusting scene that you have of your pillows filled with tomatoes, your eggs that have been spread with the shells into your bedspread, and the bacon and clove mountain, and the sausages in the shoes.
Yeah. Okay.
Got it.
So we'll come back to that in half an hour's time, and hopefully we'll be able to go, oh yeah, that was disgusting. And if you have this kind of visceral, like emotive connection to it, you're more likely to remember it.
Got it.
That's good. I'm gonna try it out 20 minutes time.
That's 5 items. If you have 200 jokes, you have to do that with 200.
So I don't do that, but people like Gary Delaney and Jimmy Carr will do something like that, where they'll start off at their front door, or they'll start off in their bedroom, and they'll go, what's on my bedside table? It's going to be 2 people having sex. What is in the cupboard next to me? There's going to be a werewolf. What is in the drawer? Kind of, what can I see through my bedroom window? And they'll kind of step through that room, and maybe there'll be 50 jokes in that room. And then they'll go down the hallway, and they'll be in another room. And then they'll go to the kitchen, and they'll go to the lounge, and they'll go outside, and they'll go into their car. And they won't be verbalizing any of these things, but they'll just be going through the motions, and there'll be stop points where they'll be like transitioning between rooms, that they'll kind of go, cool, where are you from? Excellent, great, next, into the room. I found with sort of that technique, it took me a little bit of time to get into the room. So what I do is I kind of have floating little pictures that I have designed, and I will kind of make them as weird as possible. So I just have them floating on, so I know which one is coming up. But also, if I need, like, if somebody said something in the room, I can jump from what I'm doing here into one particular picture down here that refers to something that's happened, and then I can take that one out, so I know that when I get to that point, I'll jump to the next bit over.
That's good.
How long does it take you to memorize like an hour set?
Well, so an hour set will kind of build itself over time, but you will sit there and you will sort of put different jokes in different stages. So for me, I like to start off nice and clean and then work kind of dirtier. So I'll put all the clean jokes together. If I have some animal jokes, I'll put like 5 animal jokes together, and then form a picture from those 5 animal jokes. If I have kind of breakfast jokes, I'll put all the breakfast jokes together, and we'll kind of do it that way. So it will take a bit of time to rearrange all the jokes that you're kind of taking from wherever you've written them down, type them out, find consistent themes between them, and then work out the small picture that you're going to be doing about them, and then learning what the pictures are and what the pictures mean. So it does all take time. There are fast ways of doing it, but it's really for when you have a show that you're ready to put forward. There's no point in learning new jokes in that format, because they won't work, kind of ones you haven't kind of trialed before at open mic nights and things like that. There's no point in doing it that way, because your brain is just over processing itself. So it's why I would just go on with a clipboard and go yes or no.
That's fair.
That's good, man. Oh, I feel like even our audience at home be like, that's why we subscribe. The thing is,
it's also nice having a prop in your hand of the yes or no clipboard, because you can do things with it, and you can kind of go, oh, rubbish, never do that one again. You know, you can go, only 400 left, brilliant. You know, kind of play with the prop that you have.
Another thing that I was going to ask you, and this is just from us being comedy geeks, me and me. Do you think comedy can be taught in your own experience?
I think so. I think anybody can be a stand-up. I think anybody can get on stage and say funny words in the correct order, but not everybody can be a comedian. And by that I mean not everybody can deal with 20 gigs in 20 days, the hundreds of road miles, the getting back at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, getting up, getting dressed, going out again, not seeing loved ones, not going to birthday parties, not going to kind of those sorts of things, but also not being able to deal with hecklers, gigs not working, people not paying you, kind of bad gigs that you have because everybody has them, great gigs that you have. I think everybody can be a stand-up one time
Mm.
or however many times, but it does take a certain person, a certain brain to want to go and be a comedian and do it again, 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 night after night.
I, I I feel like when you start out, before you even call yourself a comedian, it starts off you inviting a few friends, people come in. Then at some point in that journey, people start calling you a comedian without you having to say, "Hey guys, I'm the comedian." Like, even if it's like on a small level, even if you go to a gig and you see, oh Jesus, my name that's actually on there. When you start then realizing, oh shit, I'm actually a comedian. That's a crazy feeling. And that's when you feel like, okay, now I gotta take, because at every stage of this process, what I've noticed is you get to a stage and you're now how do I get better? Now I've done London, how do I take it to a next level now that I've done this? Now
But
that
they
I've
always say it's better to be the worst comedian on the lineup because then you'll be learning from everybody else in that lineup.
mm,
It is good as well going and doing open mic nights and kind of testing yourself out in those kind of testing grounds, seeing what the new ones are coming up with and how they're doing it, and kind of going, am I still relevant in some respect?
yeah,
Am I still doing things that these new people that are maybe 16, 17, 18, or kind of a bit older in America, I guess, if they're going into bars and things, am I still relevant to these people? Am I still using words? Am I still using phrases? Am I still using kind of reference points within jokes to these people, but also kind of this 50, 60-year-old people you go and do in a village hall somewhere?
it's like you're learning to have a conversation with everyone. Literally you're trying to be relevant in whichever town you find yourself in that weekend. So
But it's also about I find I kind of consider like open mic nights in different places, a bit like dojos. So if you go to a
mm,
different dojo, they'll be fighting in a slightly different way.
yeah,
And if you go to Oxford or you go to Manchester or you go to Bristol, um, then you'll be doing things in a slightly different way, and you have to kind of learn to some extent
yeah,
what they're doing, how they're doing it well, what you can take from them. If they like, if you're in front of a very Oxford gig where they're very posh or they're very kind of woke or they're
mm.
very kind of strict about certain word choices, then you have to learn to do what they're doing, and then hopefully you'll take that to other places.
um Mate, did you want to add anything before we move on to the final stages?
Yeah, we didn't. So we talked about, okay, so it's hard to be a comedian. Like, anyone can be a stand-up, but it's hard to be a comedian.
Yeah.
Um, but before we wanted to talk about like how someone goes from feature or open mic or feature headliner, right? Like, what was your path? And we were talking about how it's changed, in this day and age. So can we talk about your path, and then like
Sure.
what are the other paths that people take?
So I started off because I live just outside London, but I also have a car. I started off trying to do some of those London gigs, found them very cliquey, found them very kind of insular, found them a bit, if they didn't know who you were, you weren't really watched. So I had a car, so I thought to myself, let's go to all these kind of places that are about an hour to 2 hours away and kind of learn to do it that way and kind of expand your you you expand your network a lot quicker that way. So certainly with me, I I was doing that, but also there is a company here that will employ people to be a comedian, but also drive other comedians around the country. So I did a lot of that, and it just kind of worked out that it was easier for me to kind of MC a lot of those as well because I was staying there the entire evening with like a carload of comedians. So I kind of graduated from kind of 5 and 10s that I was doing into MCing fairly quickly. So I think that's kind of where like the play element kind of come from that way. I've done, I don't know, let's say I've done 2,000 gigs, maybe 900 of those have been MCing, maybe. So I'm a bit of an MC snob, but yeah. So kind of that was my transition. I kind of went to go and do that, and then because I was going around the country, there are loads of people that run small little gigs that you've never really heard of, and they go, "Cool, you're quite funny. Come and do a 5 in somewhere that's 5 hours away."
So this company that you're talking about, they're kind of put you on because you get to go in all these different stages. What was the requirements for them? How did they pick what comedians they wanted? Did they just pick anyone? Like what was that like?
I think there is an application process, but
Yeah.
it is a case of if you're known by the promoter and there were a couple of gigs where he was at, so you can kind of see what sort of level you were at. And he would also take chances on people as well. So some chances he would take and it was brilliant and it would work out really well. Some chances he would take and sometimes the act wouldn't do as well. But he is like an equal opportunity employer, both kind of gender and race and sexuality and things like that, but also in terms of the level that you're at as well. So sometimes he'd just go, "Sure, you can come and do this one. Never heard of you, but fingers crossed." So yeah, kind of sometimes it would work very well. Sometimes it would not work very well at all. I've certainly been at gigs for this company, and they sent somebody out who had never MC'd before to MC, and all they did was they got up and did their set. No interaction, no crowd work, no warming the crowd up. They were just like, "Joke number one," and you're like, "This is not MCing. This is just you getting up there and doing it." That was such a weird gig. So yeah, so that was kind of my transition into those sorts of gigs, and thankfully in a way those sorts of gigs were not always the best organized, or they were in kind of pubs that had no kind of focal spotlight. You had to go in, you had to change all the tables and chairs around because they weren't expecting comedy, and like, "We're all here now, what's going on?" So yeah, they sort of teach you that's kind of groundwork, that's kind of what you have to do, and that's what I went through to kind of learn how to do what I do.
That's how a lot of British comedians start. All these guys, those open mics where you have to go into a venue, announce that, guys, we're now just about to tell some jokes. You can finish your food.
I drove from London for this company for about 4.5 hours to a gig in Plymouth, if not a little bit longer. When we arrived there at this university, the poster on the door said "Comedy Evening" with an MC and 4 amateur acts. And we were like, this is going to be the worst gig ever. We all went into the green room and like, "Have you seen this poster?" Nobody, I wouldn't come to this poster. I'm a comedian. And we were just so down about it all. And then like kind of 5-10 minutes before showtime, somebody went, "All right, we're ready." And we were like, "Who's out there?" And they went, "About 300 people."
Oh, jeez.
So we all had to be a bit like, "Fuck, okay, we need to focus on this now. Stop fucking about. Just learn your joke. Do not go out there and do anything. Just kind of focus on, yeah, it's kind of 300. I don't think there was anything else to do at a university campus at that time. It all came out, but we were not expecting anybody. We were shut off in this room with everybody else going, "I'm not amateur. Why would you have 4 hours to be an amateur comedian?"
So that's your gigging experience, and then how do you get to featuring, and then how do you get to headlining? or are you just moving up that ladder
Yeah,
in that company?
I think like with any comedy company in a way, it's it's sort of about who you know and who you can impress at the right time.
Got
If there's somebody in the room that uh, runs a small gig and
it.
you smash that gig that they're at, they're
Yeah,
more likely to say to you, "Come and headline, come and open,"
yeah,
than "You've only been going 5 minutes, come and do an open spot."
got
So I think with a lot of these things, it is just luck, but it's also climbing the weird ladder. So if you put something on your CV where there's a gig that's the same sort of comparable size to another one,
yeah,
a promoter will say, "Oh, it's the same sort of size gig to mine. If they're used to doing those ones, they can come and do my one." And everything has to go in the email, kind of open for these people, closing for these people, middling for these people, and you just kind of fill your email up with all of these kind of named shows and named kind of people that you gig with, maybe. So that other promoters will go, "Oh, they gig with this person, great. Oh, they've gigged in here to this many people. They've gigged to this many people." Um,
Y-
as kind of Nelson said in the beginning, it's all just that kind of business pack that you sent out in your email.
yeah, yeah. It just seems like you gotta do a bunch of shows, and then the right person has to be there, the booker, and then they have to come up to you and go, "Yo, like I liked your stuff, come through, and we need a headliner for this."
Or you can be the other guy who pesters them relentlessly.
I don't. Is that a great strategy? Like, does that work or no?
it can eventually work.
You think
It
so?
can.
So
So I think it can work, but it's a case of if you're going to put yourself out there and you're really going to pester somebody to be like, "Put me on, put me on, put me on," you've really got to be shit hot.
you gotta be good. Yeah.
You know, there's a lovely gig I went to go and do where this promoter did not know me. There was only kind of maybe 60 people in this brewery, essentially. And the promoter just put something out at midnight saying, "Hi, an actor's dropped out. Come and do this gig for, I don't know, kind of 40 quid or something." And it's kind of down the road from me. And I'm just like, "Hi, I'll come and do it." Like, he didn't ask for a CV. He didn't ask for anything. He was just like, "I filled the spot now. Great. Please don't be shit." And I kind of walked in with my kind of bag and my kind of suit. And he just went, "Oh, hi, who are you?" "Oh, I'm Chris." "Oh, okay. Oh, hi. I put you in last night." "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So just go and do 10 or kind of go and do kind of as much as you feel is okay. I don't really know kind of what you can do. Just kind of don't make out. And thankfully at that point, I had kind of 1,500 gigs. It was easy just to walk on and absolutely smash this place. And I kind of walked back off after my set and he was just like, "Thank you so much. I didn't know who you were, but thank you so much. You can come back." Yeah, so
Yeah.
the right place, right time, kind of luck.
That is,
Really.
yeah, yeah.
I
Listen,
think
Chris.
that's why a lot of the advice to any aspiring comedian has got to be go and gig, because you'll learn stuff on stage, you'll learn stuff in different rooms, you'll learn stuff from different people, you'll learn kind of different stuff from different audiences that you'll have, but also you'll kind of meet such a wide range of people who run gigs in weird little places that you never expected or never knew about. And they'll be like, "Come do a 5 for me, come do a 10 for me."
Gentlemen, we have about 8 minutes left because of the platform that we use. But I just want to say, Chris, this has been so insightful and it's so different from a lot of the interviews that we've had, because we try, although we have a system that we have, we also try to focus more on the act. So what we've picked up from you is just a lot of good stuff about performance and, branding, and also just one more question. When did you start wearing the suit?
So I've done, let's say I've done 2,000 gigs. I have not been in a suit for 4 of them, I think.
That's gotta be true.
I think that is true. Like, I think there were ones that I was just sort of down the road for, or kind of dragged on stage to come and do. So uh, when did the suit come about? I wanted to be professional on stage. I wanted to look like a professional, even though I was just starting out. And I think if you are quite a big man in a suit, being kind of loud, like you are kind of show busy anyway,
Yeah.
in that sort of style. And uh, in my mind, when I was starting out, if you're just doing a 5 with loads of other people who have been the same as you, but somebody remembers the big guy in the suit, you'll hopefully be picked out to go and do a 10 over and above them.
It's a strong brand. Okay, before we go, do you want to go back to that exercise we did earlier? Find out what we remember, so that we can.
We can do this one of two ways. Do you want to tell me where things are, or do you want me to ask where things are?
You can ask me where things are.
So, what is in your shoes?
Sausages.
Good. What is inside your pillowcase?
Beans.
Tomatoes.
Wait, it's beans.
I didn't say beans, but that's fine. If that's what you remembered, that's absolutely fine. Don't worry about that. Where is the bacon?
The bacon is in the pile of clothes.
Laundry. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. And so, finally, what does it feel like to touch the eggs, and where are they?
It's disgusting on the bed.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's good.
So hopefully when you go into a supermarket next time and you think to yourself, I need some breakfast items because I'm cooking a weird English breakfast for Nelson, you'll think to yourself, my room is now disgusting. It smells horrible. So yeah.
It gives new meaning to breakfast in bed.
Good.
That was so good. That was so good, man. Listen, we do want to just there's so much stuff that I prepared, but the thing is, these interviews never really go to plan. But no, they never go to plan. They never go how I script them. Because the conversation just takes over. And
that's because you've only written one word in every line. That's fine.
I should do more pictures now. But I just want to say, like, one more thing that we do finish on is the comedian gets to discuss, like, jokes. Now, normally there's like 2 jokes, but because of the time, we'll lead you on to one of my favorite jokes, the opening line. Go on, Chris.
Do you want to do it and see if it works? Okay, so you do my opening line and see if it works for you. I don't think it will. It might do. Have you got your glasses on?
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I don't have my glasses on, okay. But I can read it out as Chris. Okay. It's a pleasure for you to encounter a comedian whose face incorporates the opening 3 clues of any game of Guess Who. Beard, bold, glasses. Did I do it justice? You don't look impressed.
I was kind of thinking that's pretty good. I should still. But it's one of those ones where if we have been playing, if we have been doing it, and I've shut everybody up and go, we're going to be serious with what we're doing now. It's just a pleasure for you to encounter this space. People just roar with laughter because it's just such. It's true, and I've heard people go, "It's really true." Look at his face, and you kind of play with those people as well. And then people shout other things out. You've got ears, because everyone's got ears, mate. That doesn't narrow it down, does it? Yeah. And sometimes they shout at man, sometimes they shout at woman. Kind of play with those things as well. Sometimes so gender binary these days. So it's just a nice thing that I have, but I kind of have to keep my face like this all the time now. I can't change my face. It's a very good opening line. And I think it just shows a level of silliness, a level of not taking yourself too seriously. That if you see quite an intimidating man on a suit in a suit walking onto a stage, you kind of go, "What's this guy going to talk about?" And then he's incredibly silly with what he's doing. So there's just that kind of play that's going on there.
That's so awesome.
My favorite line is when you say upside down face, because every time you say that, I actually try to picture your face.
There are so many people that do it. You can literally predict sometimes with some jokes what they're going to do. And even if they don't do it, they're thinking about doing it. So even if nobody goes like that, you go, I saw somebody at the back go. So just those sort of kind of like professional lines, I call them, where even if something isn't happening in the room, you can put that idea in people's heads. You can put that play out there, even if it's not happening, because people are thinking it.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been an hour of Chris Norton Walker. Oh, hey, listen, do you want to say anything that you want to promote or anything that's coming up?
Sure, I'll promote this 7-Up. Delicious. So
Shout
you can
out
find
to
me on
7-Up.
all the social medias, on YouTube, TikTok, things like that. So just search for Chris Norton Walker and that should be there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate it.
Wave like on a game show.
10 out of 10.
You're doing it now. Why are you doing it?